Okay, good morning, everybody. Another wonderful class of the Rebbe. This is actually a very easy, nice going class. It's not about the Parsha, actually. It's about Pesach, the holiday we are coming up. Mitch Chem, I hope you realize Pesach is coming, guys. Whether you're ready or not. This is going to be the last class, first from this book, this series, and it's the last class till after Pesach. So the next 2 weeks is not going to be any classes. Next Thursday and the following Thursday, and then make sure we'll get together after Pesach again, and we'll have a new book that we're going to learn. The class is called. Today is the first day of the. No, that's the wrong class. Wait.
Slice of perfection.
2:30.
1.
2:30.
2:30.
Okay.
Thereabouts.
That's an issue, go for the second.
2:31. A slice of perfection. The first feather in your cap is already reason to celebrate. Okay. So as you see, it's a matzo ball soup picture. So everybody loves Pesach because of matzo balls. And it's the only thing that Chabad doesn't eat is matzo balls. See, we come to Chabad Seder, we don't have matzo balls. No matzo balls. No gebruks, right. And this is going to be the class about that. You're going to tell you all about the matzo balls. Because every time people book the Seder at Chabad, the first thing to ask is there going to be matzo balls. And
They bake it soft.
You eat it at the end.
At the end, right. So soon see. Right, correct. So there's no matzo balls at Chabad, and I apologize to all the people that come to the Seder. Because they all want to know if there's matzo balls, and there's no matzo balls. But there's beautiful the Seder is a beautiful Seder. If you don't have a Seder to come to, you should come. First night over here, we're gonna have a beautiful Seder. Family, we have 2 Seders there. The first night, the family Seder, making a little earlier with the kids, and then there's a traditional Seder, also with kids, but it's a little bit later. And everybody should be by a Seder. Everybody should eat matzah. And everybody should eat shmura matzah. That's why Chabad gives out shmura matzah to everybody, that they can at least eat 2 shmura matzah, at least eat by the Seder, have a kazayas. A kazayas at least is a half a matzah, a shmura matzah, to have at the Seder, at least a kazayas. Many people eat machine matzah, but at least at the Seder to have a kazayas of matzah. Therefore, we give you 2 matzahs that you can eat either at your first Seder or at your first and second Seder that you do on Pesach. So if you need a shmura matzah, come to Chabad. We'll give you the shmura matzah, the 2 matzahs. It's free, and you can use it gladly for your Seder. Okay. So the Alter Rebbe, the reason why we don't eat matzah balls is because the mitzvah, the commandment of the Torah is that not only you should eat matzah on Pesach, which is an obligation by Jews to eat the first and the second night for sure, and if you eat any other kind of bread during the 7 days, it's only matzah, but you don't have to eat matzah the other days of Pesach, but you have to eat matzah on the first and second night of Pesach. Also, you have to eat matzah. For example, you make in the morning, you make kiddush, and you have to do it over matzah. So you have to eat matzah also on the daytime of Pesach. But that's not the mitzvah of matzah. That's the mitzvah of eating lechem, of eating bread. And the only bread you can eat on Pesach is matzah. Matzah is also bread. It's called lechem oini, the bread of affliction. It's bread. It's flour and water. It's bread. It's unleavened bread. And but the first night and the second night of Pesach, you're obligated to eat a kazayas of matzah. Means at least a half a matzah, half of a handmade matzah. This matzah I gave you is handmade matzah. It means somebody from the time of cutting until the packing, even the packing was all done by hand. Okay, from the cutting of the wheat No, the cutting the wheat was done by a machine, I'm probably. From the doing of the flour, from the mixing of the flour, and to the baking of the matzah, rolling it out and making the holes in the matzah. If you ever were by a matzah bakery, if you never were by a matzah bakery, you should go to a matzah bakery, and you should see it. It's amazing kind of process, and you'll see the intensity of the work that is done in making this matzah. This matzah is not a lot of work, but it's also a lot of intense work because the matzah has to be done in a certain time value. So that means the matzah, from the time it's rolled, it's mixed the water and the flour, it needs to be in the oven by 18 minutes. And if it's not, it's disqualified. So it's if you ever go to a matzah bakery, which you should go, if you have to know where matzah bakers are open all year round. But in New York, there's a matzah bakery Crown Heights that's open almost from Hanukkah till Passover. And if you're ever in that area, you should go and see what a matzah bakery is and the intensity that it is. So it's a lot of work, and it's very, things have to be done in a certain time, and it's a very pressured kind of environment. And it's that's why you're spending money a lot on the matzah. Like the cheapest matzah today out there is $15, $16 a pound. You can buy $40 a pound of matzah. So you can buy different. It's expensive. Matzah is not cheap because, again, it's a lot of machine matzah cheaper because it's done by machine. The cheapest matzah kasa is $15 a pound. You're not going to get it less than $15 a pound. Machine matzah you'll get for cheaper, but $5 a pound. But a handmade matzah, it's a lot of labor, it's a lot of work, and it's actually physical labor. You can have 15, 20 people thus rolling the matzah. So to make this matzah, a lot of people are involved in this shmura matzah, this handmade matzah. And therefore, even though machine matzah is kosher for Passover, but for the Seder night, you should have handmade matzah. You should eat what's called shmura matzah. Really, shmura means that it's watched. It's matzahs that it's watched. But the Torah prohibits a Jew that's the obligation. You have to eat matzah on the first night of Pesach. Second, out of Israel, even the second night of Pesach, it's a mitzvah. You make a bracha on the mitzvah of eating matzah at your seder. So you obligate to eat matzah, but the other prohibitions having chametz, which not having chametz, not having any unleavened bread, and the truth is it's much more harder that mitzvah than the matzah, right? Because you go buy the matzah in the store and that's it. Or I gave you matzah, finished. But the cleaning of your house for Pesach and the making sure you have no leaven in your house, and not only that, but the cleaning of the kitchens. I mean, this is an avodah. This is a whole person. This is a whole work, and you find by matzah, by chametz, something you don't find in any other mitzvah in the Torah, and that is that the Torah prohibits any kind of a situation where a person could have any chametz, even the most smallest amount of chametz in open to you. Bal yira or bal yematzah. The Torah says you shouldn't see chametz and you shouldn't find chametz. That's what we clean for. We check the chametz. We burn the chametz. We do many things to this chametz. We want to get rid of this chametz, right? And chametz asur b'mashehu. Chametz is prohibited even in the smallest amount. Right? Even non-kosher gets mixed up in a big amount. It becomes kosher. Chametz is prohibited in the smallest of amounts. So that's why, even though people keep chametz, they keep the chametz, they lock it up in a closet, right? We close in the closet, we put a sign, don't get chametz. We sell the chametz. We sell it. We burn the chametz. We're out to get chametz. Jews, right? Out to get the chametz. Like the Baditchev once said that he after his seder he walked out into the city of Baditchev and he stopped a Jew and he said, "Can you get me a piece of chametz? Can you get me?" The Jew looked at him and said, "Rebbe," he said, "Yeah, I'll give you 50 ruble for chametz." He says, "Rebbe, you went mishuggah? It's Pesach. I'll give you 100 ruble." He says, no. He says, no, he must have went crazy. And he stopped Jew by Jew. And he asked him, can you get me, I'll give you 500 ruble. Get me a piece of chametz. And everyone answered the same thing. What are you, Rebbe? You went Meshuggah? What can't get? I'm not even 1,000 not going to get your chametz. So he turned his eye to the Abish and he said, look at the Am Yisrael. Look at your nation. I offer them all the money in the world. They're not going to bring me a shtick of chametz on Pesach. They're just not going to do it. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Right? It's not going to happen. By Jews, we get rid of our chametz. You're going to go to a Jew on a Pesach. You're going to offer him money. He's going to tell you, I have no chametz. I can't get your chametz. So have a good day. It's not going to happen. So that's the beauty. Because chametz by us is something that the Torah prohibits. But self-understood that Chassidus came here to learn a little Chassidus. Chassidut explains us why chametz and why did God want to eradicate chametz? What was the terrible thing of this piece of bread? What's going to happen? What is the spiritual concept behind it? And that's the journey we're going to do today. Because this journey of going out of Egypt ends with the giving of the Torah. That's the journey, the 50-day journey. They went out of Egypt on the 15th of Nisan, and they were given the Torah on the 7th day of Sivan, which is 50 days later. The 50 days. That's also the Sfirat HaOmer, the 49 days we count from the second day of Pesach until the day before the 50th day, the 49 days, the 50th day to give you the Torah. So this journey of Am Yisrael. So let's go. Let's go to the law. Let's go back to the matzah bowls. That's what we're all interested in. Why we don't eat matzah bowls. So when I gave you this introduction to realize that why we don't eat matzah bowls is a chumrah. It's a stringency that especially Chabad does. And the answer is because of anything that can be, the simple answer is because anything that can be chametz in your possession is your matzah. If anything can be chametz at your table, is your matzah. Because your matzah is flour and water. It cannot be chametz because it's baked already. So you can't have matzah, it's baked already. So how can it be chametz? Right? Because already it cannot become leaven because it's baked already. But if you want to be stringent and there is a particle of flour on your matzah, you got a problem. Right? You would really have to put the matzah, under a microscope. Not that there's no flour, there's not a drop of flour on that matzah. So it's a stringency because who needs to put their matzah to examine it to see if there's any flour. But if there is flour, if there's a dot of flour on your matzah, then that can become chametz. If water hits that flour that's on your matzah, it stays there for 18 minutes, bingo, it's chametz. Now, it does become water in your mouth, but that's not a problem because you're eating it and you're swallowing it. But if the water would hit this matzah, and this water would stay with this matzah for 18 minutes, with this flour, it would become chametz. But that's a chumrah. It's a very big stringency. Most Jews don't do it, but besides Chabad does this, and we're stringent. And it's called gebrux. It's called matzah shruya in Hebrew, and therefore we don't eat gebrux. We make sure that our matzah never comes in contact with the water, besides in our mouth. We don't make matzah brai. We don't make matzah balls. We don't make matzah brai. We don't do all these things. We don't do anything that water can come on the matzah.
What do you eat for breakfast?
Matzah. Matzah. You can eat matzah.
Covered with matzah.
Covered with more matzah. That's it. That's how we. Matzah and potatoes. No, you can't put anything on unless because it's water in the jam. So no jam, no nothing comes on the matzah. Now some people hold, for example, you can. So nothing. That's it, matzah. Don't make your wet. It's called gebrux. Don't make your matzah wet.
So you just eat dry matzah.
Dry matzah. What's the
Why is no butter
Goonish.
Goonish?
So this is Alter Rebbe, text number 1. You'll see it, Alter Rebbe says, I have read all you written in your letter, and I will close with a brief response regarding the issue of cooking crumbled matzah. Because really, why can't you make matzah? Well, cooking crumbled, what is matzah balls? Matzah balls is crumbled matzah that we cook in water, and we have matzah balls. What's wrong with that? A matzah cannot become chametz because it's cooked, it's baked already. So it cannot become chametz in Jewish law. So what's wrong making matzah balls? Really, there's nothing wrong. In Jewish law, it's not a problem. That's why a lot of Jews eat matzah balls on Pesach. The truth is, there's no outright prohibition in doing so. The Alter Rebbe makes sure there's no outright prohibition in doing so. Because according to Jewish law, you could eat matzah balls. There's no problem. Nevertheless, one who has stringently shall receive a blessing. The Alter Rebbe says, I hold that nevertheless, you should be machmar in this, even though according to Jewish law, you can get away with it. But you should be stringent. And if you're stringent, you'll be blessed. This is not a ridiculous stringency without a basis. This is not the stump craziness, the Alter Rebbe writes. Rather, there's a strong basis for observing this stringency. Namely, avoiding the possibility of transgressing a biblical prohibition. That's the problem. The problem is if there's a dot of flour on this matzah, now if this flour gets in contact with water, now you might have a Torah prohibition if that would happen. It might be very unusual, but it's possible to happen. Possible to happen. Unless you're going to sit there with a microscope and look that there's no flour on your matzah. Understand? So to say it's impossible is not. It's not. You can't say that. You have to realize that a matzah bakery is full of flour going on over there. Okay, because they're baking, and there's always flour in the air, particles of flour in the air. Okay, we can plainly observe that many times flour remains on the surface on some matzahs even after they have been baked. This happens because the dough was tough and was not kneaded thoroughly. It's all handmade. So people make mistakes. Things can happen. And therefore, there could be flour in a matzah. That's why the matzah, you'll see, you go to matzah bake, every matzah is checked, right? Because the matzah can be bent over, kfula. There's a lot of laws in matzah. It can be bent over. Let's say you get your matzah, a lot of times it's break, the corners are broken. You're thinking, who broke it? Somebody broke it in a matzah bakery. Because the matzah at the corner, sometimes it bent over. And it became a kuffel. It bent over. The matzah became they'll break it off. Okay? Because that's a problem. That's already a problem with the matzah in itself. Because if they bent over, that means maybe it didn't bake inside. Why do you think they make holes in the matzah? Because to make sure that it bakes, that it gets burnt. That's why your matzahs are mostly burnt. They're toasty.
Well done.
They're well done, right? And they're hard. Because he wanted to hard. See, originally there was times that they used to make. There's some Yemenites till today that make matzah fluffy. It's called they make a fluffy matzah. They know how to make a matzah that is soft. Yeah,
Pizza?
it's like a pita. It's like a pita, but they have to know how to do it. That it's baked totally through and through. The matzah that we eat is dafke hard, and very well baked. Right? Because why we want to make sure that it's baked. That's why we take it. It's very thin to begin with. And then we roll a strong pin over it to make millions of holes in it. Why? Because we want this matzah almost to burn. And therefore, the hardest job in a matzah bakery is the guy that's at the oven. Because if it would be there one more second, it would burn. He's putting it in a very, if you ever were a matzah baker, a real fire and wood, I mean, he's putting it in a 1,000-degree oven. If the matzah would be there a second later, it would burn. So and it's hard, and that's why you get concentration, because it is you're eating a hard, you're eating a very dry. That's the point. It should be dry, hard, and it was totally burned through. It was totally baked. No. So if the pieces of such a matzah are placed in a soup, as many are accustomed to doing so, one inadvertently transgresses, God forbid, a biblical prohibition. So therefore, you have to realize that. Even though this is a stringency, and al pi halacha, maybe you don't have to worry about it, but that's the reality. The reality is, if there is a dust of flour on this matzah, and the matzah now came into water, it doesn't make a difference if you had intention to do it, or you didn't have intention to do it. If this flour gets in contact with water and it becomes chametz, you have now done a Torah prohibition, even if it's inadvertently. So, therefore, Chabad is machmer. We are very stringent in matzah shruya, in gebrachs, what's called matzah that comes in contact with water. That's you'll come to a Chabad family house. They're going to make you eat in a cover to make sure the matzah is covered, and that even at the table, there's no matzah on the table. I know in my house that after we ate matzah, right after, my father would take off all the matzah off the table, and during the meal we had no matzah. And that's it. The matzah went off the table, and then we ate our meal, and then we wanted to eat matzah. We ate matzah, but there was no matzah on the table besides the seder. But in general, at the meal, there was no matzah. By my house, we have bags. We give everybody bags, and etc. So
Because the wine could spill.
anything, water, wine, etc. Right? So, for example, my house, my family house, before the invention of plastic goods, which thank God that came out. So if matzah got on a plate, we'd put away the plate for the year. Put away the plate. Today, everything's plastic. We're throwing it out anyway, so it's not a problem. But people do come to my house and they're putting the matzah here, they're putting matzah, whatever. They're doing whatever they want, and I don't throw them off the table, but they're using plastic, so it goes into the garbage. Sounds good. But if it would be like a dish, and I would see a person put the matzah in the dish, I would put away the dish till next year. I wouldn't use the dish. So stringent are we in matzah shruya. That's what I'm telling you.
Easier to buy a lot of plastic ware.
Right? No, now everything is plastic. Who uses it? Right? Well, it's easier. It comes to Pesach for sure.
Yeah,
It's much easier.
Pesach.
It's much easier. So therefore, the Rebbe writes, as we are extreme in text number 2, extremely careful to avoid consuming matzah shruya. That means matzah that came with water. Therefore, the matzahs on the table are covered at all times, so that water does not spill upon them. Before we pour water or any other liquids that are mixed with water in a cup or a bowl, we inspect the bowl, the cup or the bowl, sure there's no crumbs of matzah in it. When we wash our hands during the after meal, we do not pass our hands over our lips, because maybe there was some matzah on our hands. So we are extremely, extremely careful with this law. As you say, until the last day of Pesach. Until the last day of Pesach. Achlin shel Pesach. Achlin shel Pesach, the Alter Rebbe says in text number 3, nevertheless, one who is lenient on the final day of Pesach, of the holiday, for the sake of rejoicing on the holiday, has nothing to lose. Okay? So we have matzah balls the last day of Pesach. That's the difference between us and the rest of the world. The rest of the world have matzah balls on the first day of Pesach. Chabad has matzah balls on the last day of Pesach. So all Jews have matzah balls, Baruch Hashem. Depends when during the Pesach. Okay? So we have matzah balls on the last day of Pesach. The Frierdiker Rebbe writes in text number 4, my saintly father, the Frierdiker Rebbe, the 6th Lubavitcher Rebbe, writes about his father, the Rebbe Rashab, whose yesterday was his yortzeit of Shalom Deiber of Shneis, the 5th Lubavitcher Rebbe, was particular. Not like the Alter Rebbe says, you know what, you can be lenient. The Rebbe Rashab, the 5th Lubavitcher Rebbe, was a great-great-grandson of the Alter Rebbe, was particular to simply eat matzah shruya on Achar Pesach. He would put matzah, the entire Pesach, he was particular not to eat matzah together, any type of food. But on Achar Pesach, the last day of Pesach, he would do so deliberately, exhibiting this custom in public. He would eat matzah with fish, with soup, he would put matzah in every plate, in every dish. He would put matzah in every dish. Fish came out, he ate it with matzah. Soup came out, he ate it with matzah. He put the matzah in it. He would show the total opposite. So the Rebbe Rashab, which we do today, We know the Frierdiker Rebbe said, and the matzah, fish comes out. We have yoich. We put it in. That's why I only eat yoich on yoich is the juice of the fish. We bring out yoich and we eat matzah in the yoich. We go wild, right? Matzah crazy, matzah shruya crazy, matzah Brooks crazy.
Matzah madness.
Right, matzah ball madness. So this is the way it is. So it's interesting the total transformation of this law. We go crazy for 7 days, not making the matzah wet, and suddenly on the 8th day of Pesach we do the total opposite. That's Jews. So many contradictions. Right? So he brings on, it's optional. This is the crazed myrtle branch. I don't know why he threw this in, but a little example to this concept. I took a picture of the myrtle branch. I forgot to bring it here. You know what a myrtle branch is? Myrtle branch is the hadassim, the sukkahs. You have to take a lulav. A lulav is a palm branch. You have to take a arava, is a willow branch, and you have to take a lulav. You have to take a hadassim, which is a myrtle branch. So the Mishnah says, this is Talmud. The Talmud says in text number 5, a dense leaved branch is valid for the mitzvah, and one that is not dense leaved is invalid. So what is a dense leaf? What is the definition of a dense leaf? Rabbi Yehuda says it is a branch that has 3 leaves emerging from the same stem. So if you look at the next statement, Rabbi Kana said, even if it has 2 leaves emerging from one stem and the 3rd leaf emerging from another stem, just below those 2 is a valve. So you look at if you look at a myrtle tree, at a myrtle branch next sukkah, you'll look at it, you'll see a hadassim is like a segel. 3, there's like 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. Right, 2 and one on it. It's an interesting kind of a yeah.
What's the purpose of this?
That's the mitzvah. That's the mitzvah. The mitzvah to take these 4 kinds of things together. That's a different subject.
It's a different
Different subject.
Oh.
Ravacha, the son of Rava,
Seems a little loud.
the main thing he wanted to bring was the next statement.
Oh.
Ravacha, the son of Rava, would deliberately seek a myrtle branch with 2 one-leaf configurations. So he wanted to follow his, even though the second sage was a little more lenient than the first sage, but Abacha, the son of Akana, he would dafka try to find that configuration. That the sense of Kahana ruled that it was valid. So even though he said it was just valid, that was the point. The point is that even though, why would you go to the one that's just valid? Why wouldn't you go to the first sage that it tells you need to have it they come out of the same space? Because you want to show that the valid is correct. So in essence, the Rebbe Rashab wanted to show that the Alter Rebbe was correct, that you can eat matzah shruya on the last day of Pesach. You can eat matzah and water on the last day of Pesach. So he was medayik in the Alter Rebbe. So too, we at Chabad, we want to show that even though it's a secondary leniency, we want to show that we followed that leniency. We have followed the leniency. Even though it's a leniency, we follow the leniency too. We don't give up on even a leniency. We don't diminish the leniency, right? So in essence, we want to actually show that what Jews do during the whole Pesach, and we don't do, but as a leniency in the last day, that it's an important thing, this concept. The concept of eating matzah shruya, the aspect of eating matzah shruya has a place in Torah, has a place in Jewish law, and we're part of the Jewish nation. We're part of the Jewish nation. We're not, even though it's a leniency, we're part of that leniency, and there's a place for that leniency, and there's actually a lesson for that leniency. In essence, there's a lesson that we're going to learn from the leniency, something that we really should be careful, but most Jews seemingly are not careful the first 7 days. But we're going to show you that we're going to also be, so to say, uncareful on the dafka on the 8th day. Yeah.
Real quickly, can you tell me what is the mitzvah of the willow?
No, we're not going to go to it. No. We'll get to Hanukkah. I mean, we'll get to Sukkot. We'll come to Sukkot. That's Sukkot. And the holiday of Sukkot, you have to take these four different kinds of vegetation and do a mitzvah with them. Okay? So he just wanted to bring you, he didn't come here to teach you the law of Sukkot. That we'll wait to Sukkot and we'll give you.
This is for Pesach.
He wanted to explain something. That's why I was afraid to go there, but I went there. He would also want to explain a concept that even though the Alter Rebbe said it's a leniency to eat, you don't have to eat matzah. According to the Alter Rebbe, you don't have to eat matzah and water on the last day. But he said it's a leniency. But the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Lubavitch Rebbe, took that leniency of the Alter Rebbe and said, well, let's do it. Let's do the leniency. He's our Rebbe. Let's do the leniency. On this day, let's do the leniency. The regular rest of the Jewish nation, not the rest of the majority of the Jewish nation, do the leniency the whole 8 days. We're going to do the leniency the 8th day to show the concept that we follow the Alter Rebbe. And number 2 is to bring out a point. We're trying to bring out a point. By eating matzah shruya, by eating matzah that was with water, we're trying to bring out a point in our service of God. No, in our service of God, first of all, that's an important thing. They're part of everybody, that everybody eats matzah shuri, but also that there's different levels. There's a concept of not matzah shruya, and there's a concept of matzah shruya. There's an aspect of matzah that we don't touch with the water, and there's a concept of matzah we do touch with the water. There's a concept of chametz. This is the journey of our Yiddishkeit. It's really the journey of going out of Egypt and receiving the Torah. So what's the difference between the first night of Pesach and the last night of Pesach? That's really question number 1 we're going to answer. What's the difference between the first night of Pesach and the 8 days? That's correct. But what's the difference? Smart. So the Rebbe says, the first night of Pesach, text number 6 on page 238, the first day of Pesach is a holiday commemorating how God liberated us from Egypt. That's the first day of Pesach. That was a first redemption. It was carried out by Moshe Rabbeinu, first Redeemer, and was the beginnings, right? It was the beginning of redemption. Truth is, as we say in Haggadah, if God didn't redeem us from Egypt, there would never be any redemptions for Jewish people in the world. This redemption emphasizes to us that there's always a redemptive in any aspect of life. There's always a Matzias Mitzrayim. A Jew should not get stuck in Egypt through history. And as we say in the Haggadah, for generation to generation, they try to attack us. But Yetzias Mitzrayim teaches us there's a light at the end of the tunnel. The Eibusher redeemed us out of Mitzrayim, and therefore God will redeem us out of every kind of situation we come through. And that's why the Alter Rebbe says you really need to do Yetzias Mitzrayim every day. You need to remember the going out of Egypt every day. Because every day, good or bad, happy or sad, there's a redemptive concept. That's it. Because the Eibusher put it in the system that there'll always be, as expression in the Gemara, makdim refuah lamaka. God has, so to say, already prepared the healing before the sickness. So the Eibusher put in the system that with any kind of situation you're going to go through, you're going to come out of it. Jews will come out of it. It will not be an end situation by the Jewish nation. And that started off at Yetzias Mitzrayim. That's it. So even though we went into Golus after that, there were different exiles Jews people went through, it doesn't make a difference. Yetzias Mitzrayim was always remembered. So if Jews in the Holocaust, even in the concentration camps, they did Pesach if they could. Because the Jewish people are a redemptive nation. That's it. That's it. It's not possible for annihilation. It's not possible even for subjugation. It's not possible forever, this situation. That's it. Because the Eibusher took us out of Egypt and finished. That's the beginning, and that's ever. That's number 1. So that's Yetzias Mitzrayim. Right? What's the last day of Mitzrayim? What's the last day of Pesach? So the Rebbe, you have to go to the Haftarah. The Haftarah usually gives us the secret of the day. What is the Haftarah? The Haftarah is the prophet that we say at the end of reading the Torah of the day. So that's a prophecy of Isaiah. What is the prophecy of Isaiah that we say? Text number 7 just takes a couple of verses from that prophecy. And a shoot shall spring forth from the stem of Jesse. I'm afraid to say that word because and a twig will sprout from its roots, and a spirit of God shall rest upon him, a spirit of wisdom and understanding, a spirit of counsel and heroism, a spirit of knowledge and fear of God. He shall be animated by the fear of God, and neither with the sight of his eyes shall he judge, nor with the hearing of his ears shall he chastise. And he shall judge the poor justly, and he shall chastise the equally the humble of the earth. He will smite the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he shall put the wicked to death, and the righteous shall be girdled in his loins, and the faith girdled in his loins. So here, the coming of Mashiach. Basically, the concept of the last day of Pesach is the concept of the coming of Mashiach. That's the Haftarah. So that's why in text number 8, the Baal Shem Tov, the custom of the Baal Shem Tov, and we do that until today, was he said you need to make a Sudas Mashiach. You need to make a meal for the last day of Pesach. Just like you made a Seder for the first day of Pesach, going out of Egypt, so too Jews should come together and make a Seder for the going out of Golus, so going out of exile. A festive meal of Mashiach. On the last day of Passover, the radiance of Mashiach is openly revealed. Now, it's interesting, you should know that when you sit down at the Seder, right, the first night to Seder, especially the first night, you're commemorating the Jews sitting down at the Seder. The Jews also sat down, first time in history at the Seder. Where were they when they sat down in the Seder? They were in Egypt. Right? They were celebrating redemption before they were redeemed. Right? They were still in Egypt. Right? God told them they're going to be going out of Egypt next day, right? So they sat down in Egypt. They sat down at the Seder while they were still in Egypt. And they sat down and they sacrificed the lamb of the Egyptian god. And they sat down with matzah and maror, remembering also their slavery. And they celebrated redemption, even though they weren't redeemed yet till the next day. So too, we Jews come together in Boca. Mashiach doesn't come by then. And we're going to celebrate the going out of Egypt. We're going to celebrate the going out of Egypt. And that celebration is going to happen the last day of Pesach. Because the last day of Pesach is the celebration of going out of Mitzrayim. Of going out of Golus. So you might say, okay, that is truly a beautiful thing. Baal Shem Tov established a beautiful concept to come together the last day of Pesach, which prophesizes the concept of coming of Mashiach in your Haftorah. We come together to believe that Mashiach is going to come, and just like God took the Jews out of Egypt thousands of years ago, God's going to take us out of this Golus. Right? What's the difference between going out of Egypt thousands of years ago and the going out of Egypt? Going out of Golus today, what is the difference? Is there a difference?
We're in Egypt today.
We're not in Egypt. There's no Jews in Egypt today.
Two.
There may be two. They have two different synagogues. They don't go to the same synagogue.
When we
Yeah.
finish the Seder, the last thing we say is next year in Jerusalem.
Right.
Is that a statement about Mashiach?
Yeah, sure.
So
100%.
the expectation is we're going to be in Jerusalem because Mashiach is going
Gonna
to
come.
arrive, not
Correct.
because we physically.
No. Mashiach. Right.
All this time
The
it's
diff-
traveling.
The difference is in the prophecy of Isaiah. In that prophecy, it says, "For not with haste shall you go forth, and not with flurry of flight shall you go." The difference is that when Mitzrayim, the Jewish people were running for their lives. Today, Mashiach's going to come. We're not going to be running for nothing. Right? We're going to go, we'll be marching out. We'll be going with happiness. We're going with halal. And that's it. So we will not It will not be right. It will not be a problem. God goes before you, and the rear to guard you is God of Israel. Therefore, that's the difference. It says that the Jewish people in Egypt didn't have time even enough to carry to. That's why one of the reasons we eat matzah is the Jewish people didn't have enough time that the dough should rise. Yep.
Got this vision of Mashiach being a travel agent.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Responsible for getting us all the tickets on
Okay.
our way out.
No,
Yeah,
it's going to be free.
He's gonna be the pilot.
It's going to be free. It's going to be free. And Zechai, yeah.
You had reluctance in mentioning that name in the previous.
Because people take it wrong, Jesse, I think. Yeshaya, our Redeemer. They took the name. They took the, whatever.
So what is it actually symbolic of?
Our Redeemer, Mashiach. Yeshua, our Redeemer. They took that's the name. That's the concept, not the name.
Okay.
It's the concept. I don't know why they translated it as that word. Whatever. 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 Yishai. Yishai, Megeza, I'm sorry. I don't know what you meant. Yishai. Megeza Yishai. Take back what I said. Megeza Yishai. Yishai was the father of David. The King David. The verse says, V'yotza cheta Megeza Yishai. A shoot shall spring forth from the stem of Jesse. Jesse is Yishai. I don't know why didn't they say the word Yishai. His name was not Jesse. His name was Yishai. For some reason, they used the English. They should have said Yishai. Yishai was the father of David HaMelech. His name was Yishai. Okay. So what does it say? The text number Zechariah says, it shall come to pass that on that day, says the Lord of hosts, I will cut off the names of the idols from the earth, and they shall no longer be mentioned. Also, the false prophets and the spirit of impurity will be removed from the earth. So we got to realize that what is happening over here, and you can see it openly today in our world that we live in, sad, that until Mashiach comes, there's impurity in the world. That's it. There's impurity in the world. You can, and sometimes you can have a lot of good in the world. You see in the world in general that you can do a lot of good, but one bad thing is more worse than all the good you did sometimes. Or what's accentuated in the world is the bad that people do more than all the good that they've done. You take people that have done unbelievable, and then they, whatever, for one thing, they've been totally destroyed. Correct, right? Because impurity is very strong in the world. We have to realize that. Negativity, impurity is extremely powerful in the world. Like I said a couple weeks of the dot, everybody's worried about the dot. But whatever, this impure dot is extremely powerful in the world. And what is that dot in Jewish philosophy, and especially Chassidus? What is that dot in ourselves? What is the negative impurity that each and every one of us has? What is the real root of this Yetzer Hara? What is the real root? Ego. Self-inflated ego. Self-inflated ego. And that's why even all the truth in the world, my little ego will fight against all the truths in the world. So I can learn, and I can daven, and I can see, and I can cut, but my ego is bigger than anything. If I want to understand impurity, simple concept of what means impurity by me is my ego. Truth can look at me in the face. I know I'm wrong, but it doesn't make a difference because my ego is bigger than anything else. Even though I realize, who am I? I'm small in the whole thing, but it doesn't make a difference. That little ego is more powerful than anything. And that's why we don't change. We don't budge. We think we're right. We think we're perfect. We think we're doing enough. Whatever the concept is, It's basically an egotistical statement. It's all ego. And the truth is, I just think that you should have ego. Ego is not something that is always bad. But ego makes that bigger than anything else in the world.
We self-analyze and pat ourselves on the back. That's what you're saying. We self-analyze.
We self-analyze, we think we're greater than everything and anybody,
we pat
and forget about
ourselves on the
we're
back.
greater than God, we're greater than God, and we're good enough. And we're good enough.
Sometimes-
The Rebbe says that people think that they have to be bad to become better. They have to be bad to do tshuva. No, that's not true. Tshuva is being better. Is not being good. Tshuva means to be better. Better, everybody can be better. Anybody says he's good, yeah, we're all good. Tshuva says, I want you to be better. I don't want you to be good.
Grab the next.
I know you're good. You're wonderful. You're unbelievable. You always can be better. That's the expression by Chassidim. If good, is better not better? Be better. Don't just be good. Be better. And our ego doesn't let us be better. We suffice with the good. We're happy with the good? No.
Why can't we have an ego to be better?
Oh, that would be a good ego. That's a good ego. Halavayish, that should be your ego. That you should want to be better. But most of us are happy with the good. We're happy with the good. We're happy with the status quo. We're happy with the way it is. No, it should be better. It's not enough good. It's not enough good. We need to be better. And what stops us from being better in many aspects is our ego. Doesn't let us be better. We suffice with who we are. We're happy with our existence. That's the ego. That's the impurity that doesn't let us grow, doesn't let us become better. That's the Egypt that we don't want to leave. That's the Egypt we don't want to leave. What's wrong with the Galus we're in? It's good. What's wrong? What's wrong with Boca? It's fine. Beautiful. The weather's beautiful. We got all the good stores. We got everything. What's wrong? Oh, but it got to be better. It's got to be better. Got to be better.
Better would be
It
easy
can be
to
better.
have
I
a-
like Wendy's pizza. It's good.
Better-
But Jerusalem pizza is
Really
better.
good. I know. Maybe it's better, but this is pretty good.
That's it. We got to go to Jerusalem. Better pizza. There's a great pizza store. I'll take you there in Jerusalem. There's a great pizza store there. Yes. So look at it says. So that's why it says the transformation at the end of Torah. It says, and the wolf shall live with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie with the kid, and the calf with the lion cub, and the faulting shall be all together, and small child shall lead them. And a cow and a bear shall graze together. Their children shall lie, and the lion, like the cattle, shall eat straw. And in the infant will play in the hole of an old snake, and over the eyeball of the otter, and weaned child shall stretch forth his hand.
What's an adder?
I don't know.
What?
Right, it's a snake, I think.
Snake.
So that means everything, even the world's going to transform itself, so to say. Everything in the world will be transformed. There'll be no concept of one person, one animal striking another animal, that there'll be no strife between the world and man and animals and man in the world. This is going to be total concept of transformation. There'll be no ego. There'll be hierarchy. There'll no be, even though the Rambam even learns that these are all metaphorical, whatever. It doesn't mean that the lion is not going to eat sheep anymore, but it means that the concept of the lion that eats everything will say, I don't need to eat everything. I can eat like the cow eats. It means the Rambam learns all this. It's about humans. The human lion. shall not eat the human sheep, thinking that he's stronger, he can eat the sheep. It means that the humans, all talk about humans. There will be no struggle in the world. Why? Because if there's no ego, there's no ego. Like I say, look what's happening in the world today. People cannot get along with each other. Nations cannot get along with each other. Everybody has to put down somebody else. Everybody has to talk negative about somebody else, something else. Sad situation. It's very sad. And why? Why? There's not enough place in this world. There's not enough place in this world for everybody. Everybody cannot respect others, cannot be happy with others. It has to be one situation and not two situations, not 10 situations. Even we as Jews, when Mashiach comes, there can be only all Yidden. Why can't there be different nations in the world? Why can't there be even different philosophies in the world? What's so terrible? What does it hurt anybody? It's all ego. It's all ego. It's all ego. Based on ego. All the concept of ego. And that's the impurity that we're struggling with. Didn't start yesterday, my friends. Cain and Abel killed each other because they were fighting over the world. They didn't have enough room for the two of them. They thought that because whatever, they thought the way they lived was only the whole world. You know what I mean? They didn't have Google Maps. So they thought the whole world was there. Whatever. Maybe God should have given them Google Maps. They would have realized, wow, it's a big world. They could be far away and they could right, what's the beauty? But it's amazing. I'm small-minded a little bit, but there's so bigger things that are happening. Why nations have to hate other nations and people have to hate other people. And we have to have an enemy, so to say. Who's our enemy today? We almost have to have an enemy. So to be patriotic, you have to have somebody you hate. The Americans, we hate the Russians. I don't know. Democrats hate the Republicans hate the Democrats. And we live in a world of hate. We live in a world of hate. And really, it's not hate, it's ego. If you really want to go to hell, you're an egotistical person. You think that your philosophy is the philosophy of everything, and that's it. And nobody else's philosophy is right. You're right, and everybody's wrong. And they say the same thing. They're right, and you're wrong. And we're never ending this fight. The Abish says you need to deflate the ego. We need to deflate our ego. We need to go out of Mitzrayim. You're confining yourself. There's a big world out there. There's so much to accomplish. You're not letting yourself accomplish. You're not letting yourself grow. You're not letting yourself become better for one reason, because you have ego. Get rid of that chametz. Get rid of your ego. Deflate your ego. Open your head. Hazel Chacham. Who is a wise man? Alei Mikol Adam, that you can learn from everybody.
Except in Israel, they can't live with each other.
I'm not arguing with you. We can't live with each other, not in Israel. They can't live with each other right here in Boca. So you have to go far. You have to go far. So what is the concept of Egypt? Look at text number 12. We're going to go a little bit Kabbalistic over here. When the Jews were in Egypt, they became sullied and corrupted by all forms of impurity, to the point that they were under the influence of 49 powers of impurity. What'd you say?
Where do you get this stuff? 49 pounds of impurity.
The Zohar. Where do you got this stuff? The Zohar. Relax.
The Zohar's a myth.
Chas v'shalom. Don't say things. Don't say things that you might come to eat it. Okay. This is what we begin counting to the Zohar. Continue text number 13. This is what we begin counting the first day of Passover. We count the days as well as the weeks, for it's a mitzvah to count both days and weeks. For each day, we exit one power of impurity and place it with the power of purity. So the 49 days is for the first day of second day of Pesach until Shavuot is the 49 days. It's called Sfirat HaOmer, the counting of the Omer. And right, so the counting of the Omer, and we count the Omer 49 days. What are 49 days? We count, if you realize you count every day, you count the weeks and the days. You don't only count the days. You say, for example, today is the second week. That is the 15th day, whatever, right? So we count the weeks and the days. Why do we count the weeks and the days? First of all, because the Torah says so. But that's besides why they count the weeks and the days. Because every week, there's 7 weeks. 7 weeks. That's why it's called Shavuot. Weeks. 7 weeks. There are 7 weeks between Pesach and Shavuot. 7 weeks. And those 7 weeks are divided in weeks and in days. Each week has its week. And within this week, there's 7 days. So you have weeks and days. 7 emotions. That's how the 7 emotions. There are 7 emotions. And each and every emotion is divided into 7. So it's 7 and 7. It's 49. So for example, the first day, the first week is chesed, is the attribute of chesed, kindness. So you take chesed and you divide it into 7. You have the first day is chesed shebechesed, kindness and kindness. The second day is severity and kindness. The third day is chesed, netzach and kindness, and hoid and kindness. So you take each and every aspect, kindness, and you subdivide it into 7, meaning that you have to comprehend all the different aspects in kindness. Right? There's good in kindness. There's bad in kindness. I'm kind to somebody that is going to use it for a negative thing. Right? So kindness also needs its limitation. Unlimited kindness, that is for bad also, because kindness is kindness. Kindness doesn't care if it's good or bad. Kindness is kindness. Yesterday, they imprisoned a parent, the first time in history. Yesterday, what state it was, they imprisoned a parent because parents, a couple, first time in history, for the actions of their child. They imprison, whatever. They imprison. Let's not go into that guy. They imprison parents because the action the first time in history that they punished parents for the action of the child. Well, they gave them a gun, whatever. Right? They took responsibility. They're kind. Right? It's a child. Right? Well, they're kind. They're kind people. They love the child. Well, it's not good love. Nobody's denying the love. But love has to have its restrictions too. It needs to have gevura in the chesed. It cannot just go, my kid wants a machine gun. Here's a machine gun. Okay? I'm a kind parent. That's not kindness. So kindness needs to go. So kindness needs to be worked on. Kindness needs to be developed. You need to divide the kindness, and for surely gevura. The next week starts gevura. The next week starts the attribute of gevura. That surely needs to be developed to make sure that there's kindness in this severity, that there is this purpose in this severity, etc., etc. So that's the 49 levels. Now you understand the 49. You have 7 emotions. You have 49 steps within these 7 emotions to become impure, to be impure. I'm not saying each one of us has 49 levels of impurity. That wouldn't be good. But you need to basically figure out what's in your attribute that you have, your character that you have, and how do you move it a step forward? And it's interesting because it's not moving it 2 steps forward. You cannot skip a day. That's why the mitzvah is to count 49 days, 49 separate days, so that you don't skip a day, but each day has its purpose. And it's a full day. That's why you count a day and you count the weeks. It's a full day. It's 24 hours to work on 1/7 of your attribute, of that attribute. That's a concept of true self-development. There's a beautiful book that you should, it's not a book, it's a beautiful, it's given out by Rabbi Rabbi, what's his name? Jacobson, Rabbi Jacobson, he gave out a book on all this, on all pamphlet, what each and every day means in your character. It's a beautiful book. The truth is, not every character is different. So even if he says, but you have to figure out how it works for you. So this is self-development. This is not the 12-step program, but the 49-step program, because it's a much deeper program if we do it right, and it's self-development. So we went from chametz on Pesach, not getting rid of all chametz, eating unleavened bread, not even coming to water. We came to the last day of Pesach, which told us, listen, I know leaven is terrible, but trust me, Mashiach's coming and it's going to be fine. You're going to get out of there. You're ultimately going to transform yourself, but you're going to have to go through this process, this 7-week process to ultimately come to the giving of the Torah, which the giving of the Torah is symbolic to the ultimate redemption. Because what happened at the giving of the Torah? What happens? And how do we celebrate it?
Make it count.
No. How do we celebrate today's Shavuot? Not today, in the time of the Beis Hamikdash. In the time of the Beis Hamikdash, text number 14 is how they celebrated Purim. How they celebrate Shavuot. For your dwelling place, you shall bring bread for waving, 2 loaves made out of 2 esrainim. They shall be in fine flour, they shall be baked, leavened. First offering to God. This was the concept of bringing chametz in the Beis Hamikdash was on Shavuot. So that's the journey. We go from unleavened to 50 days later, leavened. And in the middle,
2 loaves.
2 loaves.
2 loaves.
Right.
Is that to recognize?
That's to recognize that we have rectified our ego. We have good ego. If we rectify our emotions, our 7 emotions, then we'll have good ego. Because we shouldn't get rid of ego. It should be done correctly. No, ego, you'll soon see, right? Look some further. It explicitly states in the Torah, and Maimonides says, that there should be leavened bread. How do we prepare? One would bring yeast from another place and place it into the measure. He would then fill the measure with fine flour and let it leaven with the yeast. So we made sure that it was real chametz. The Torah says there has to be leavened bread. So that's where ultimately, through the avodah of 49 days, we come to Vayigba Libai. See over here, Vayigba. He lifts up his heart. B'darkei Hashem. Our heart was proud in the ways of the Lord. Jewish pride is a good ego. Jewish. It's good ego. Being Jewish proud people, it's good ego. The Alter Rebbe says in text number 17, the truth is that although one must be exceedingly humble, nevertheless, a person should have some resolve, even a bit of pride. For if one would not have any pride, they would never engage in the service of God, for they would always belittle themselves, thinking, who am I? What is my service worth? Therefore, one needs some kind of pride, Jewish pride. So is Gaiva good? Yeah. Gaiva ego good? Yeah. Jewish ego. Proud being Jewish. Today, we need more proud of being Jewish. Who we are, what we stand for. Now let us hope that as we go through the journey, Mitzvah Hashem, on Pesach, eating unleavened bread, making sure that there's no leaven, or you be like a Chabadnik, and make sure that the flour doesn't come in contact with water even. I mean, the matzah doesn't come in contact with water. You're going to go so crazy. But on the Pesach, you're going to show that that's a chumrah, right? Because it's an 8th day that you're going to be in Mashiach already. So you're already past the Matan Torah already because you're already celebrating Mashiach. You're going to eat the matzah and water. So you're going to show openly that don't worry, even as I'm on my journey, I'm still have the hope of Mashiach, where God's going to eradicate evil from the world, and there'll be no ego in the world. But in Shem, that takes time until Mashiach comes, which is symbolic in the holiday of Pesach, the giving of the holiday of Shavuot, giving of the Torah, that we ultimately merit to that concept that there'll be 11 in the Beis Hamikdash. Should be 11 of with 11 of the what was brought in the temple. So I want to wish you all. Hope you enjoyed this class, beautiful class on the holiday of Pesach. I want to wish you all a kosher Felach Pesach, a wonderful, happy Pesach, and God bless you all. We'll see you, Mitch Shem, at the end after Pesach, the Thursday after Pesach. We'll continue this Thursday Parsha class. Have a wonderful Pesach. If you need anything for Pesach, please get in touch with us, and we'll help you out in any kind of way.
Aziz in Pesach.
God bless you and Pesach, everybody.